If you're a guy who's struggled with women historically, you've struggled to generate attraction, it is highly likely that you've done some research or have looked into how to improve that to a certain degree. You've looked into how to become more attractive, right? You've seen things such as looks maxing. You've been on the receiving end of advice such as making money and increasing your status and getting in shape, right? And maybe these things have helped, but the reality is all of them are just a simple kernel of the truth. They are just a aspect of what you really need to focus on. Because as I've worked with clients over the years and I've helped guys to generate more attractive, I've helped them to get into relationships, I've helped them to find higher quality women, I've helped them to increase their optionality greatly. And the reason why I've been able to do that is because of the model that I created. The model, which is the two sides of attraction, which I call spark and safety. And with this model, you'll be able to easily see where your gap, and more importantly, know exactly how to fill in the gap. And you'll also be able to identify some of the other ways that you can improve yourself and see which category they strengthen. So instead of you identifying these random arbitrary ways or methods to improve your level of attractiveness, you'll be able to identify what needs to be improved and what will give you the biggest bang for your buck. So let's get into it. The two sides of attraction, as I said, are spark and safety. Now, what does that mean? Spark is anything that makes a woman desire you and crave you, okay? So when we talk about looks maxing, when we talk about getting in the gym, when we talk about, dressing better or being more bold, being more charismatic, we're talking about spark. We are strengthening that category, right? Safety is anything that makes a woman feel safe, emotionally connected, right? So when people give you advice such as be a protector and be a provider, they're talking about safety. When women tell you that they want men to be more chivalrous, they're talking about safety. When women say that they like a leader, right? They're talking about safety. Now, here's the thing. Most guys, the vast majority of guys out there, even the guys that you see who crush it, even other dating coaches, right? They are typically top heavy with one or the other. Now, there are guys who primarily give off spark. These are the dating coaches out there. Most of the dating coaches primarily give off spark. So what does that mean? They probably look smashed. They probably are very confident. They probably know how to engage a woman in a way that makes her feel those little tingles, right? They're giving off spark, but they don't give off a lot of safety. Now, what happens when you only give off spark and not safety? Well, you create the conditions where women are very attracted to you. They lean in, right? They may even chase a little bit, but you can't hold the connection because safety is also something that women require. So these guys are able to attract women. They're able to get a lot of dates. They're able to get a lot of matches on dating apps. They're even able to sleep with women on the first night, right? Go through entire friend groups, right? Just knock them down left and right, but they can't hold the connection. That's why you see a lot of dating coaches who are single, perpetually single. They can't hold the connection because they only give off spark. They don't give off safety. Then there are guys who only give off safety. These are guys who are like the beta provider, as they say, right? These are guys who women choose when they get into agenda mode. Agenda mode is essentially when a woman, per the red pill terminology, after she hits the wall, right? She looks for a man who is going to commit. So she's no longer factoring in desire into the equation. The main thing that she's hyperfixating on is this man going to be someone that I can build with, have a life with? Will he give me kids? Will he be good to the kids? Will he be good to me? Will he cheat, right? They start to look for men who make sense on paper. In other words, they optimize for compatibility and ignore chemistry, all right? These are the safety guys. The safety guys also end up getting friend zoned a lot. So when you only give off safety and not spark, you set yourself up to have, at best, a subpar relationship with a woman who is in agenda mode, or you default to the friend zone. You're the guy who's like the DD, the designated driver at the end of the night. So the rare man, though, right? The rare man is the guy who can blend both spark and safety. And more important than that is who can have situational awareness, which means they know when to give spark and when to give safety, right? They can read the situation and know, okay, right now is the time to give spark, or right now is the time to give safety. And this gives them the best of both worlds, meaning they're able to date all the women. They're able to get the the dating app matches. They're able to, run through the friend group if they want to, right? They're able to have a top tier 1%er dating life. And when they're ready to commit, they can have a robust relationship that maintains desire. They don't have to suffer the fate of the guys out there who are actively in a dead bedroom. So the goal is to be more dynamic in this way. The goal is to have both spark and to have safety. Now, how do you do that, right? Because when I make content like this on, short form videos talking about spark and safety, a lot of guys think they're giving off spark or safety. And what they're actually achieving is they're giving off the shadow side of both, because both spark and safety has a healthy version of it, or like a light side, and a shadow side, meaning an unhealthy version of it. There was a guy who commented on one of my videos who said that he used to give off a lot of spark, and the way that he gave off a lot of spark was, to be hot and cold, to not really care about the woman at all, to be kind of emotionally distant. He oriented himself in a way that was very similar to having avoidant attachment. But then as he started to grow as a person, as he started to go to therapy and just really work on himself and become more spiritual, he started to offer more safety. But as he offered more safety, the spark that he offered diminished, because that is the fatal flaw. A lot of guys will build up one side and sacrifice the other, right? You want both to be high. Now, here's the thing. The reason why he experienced this outcome is because he was giving off the shadow side of spark. So he was being kind of toxic in a way, right? A lot of guys think that when you give off spark, you have to be toxic, but nothing could be further from the truth. You can actually be a good guy, a genuine, kind soul, and give off a lot of spark, and set the foundation to also give off a lot of safety, which really makes you stand out. So what this guy was doing was he was being hot and cold. When he saw her in person, he was very engaged in the conversation, but when they weren't in person, he would be very distant. He would never share how he felt about the situation. He would not be very responsive or unreachable via text, right? So what this creates, the condition that this creates in women when you are giving off the toxic side of spark, the shadow side of spark, the unhealthy side of spark, is it creates anxiety. And when the woman feels anxious, it causes her to lean in more because she wants certainty. You put her in like a dysregulated state. Her nervous system is dysregulated. She's confused about the connection. And in order to close that loop and gain certainty, she leans in, she chases, she ruminates, she obsesses over you. A lot of the guys who create this content and they talk about how to make a woman obsess over you, they're talking about giving the shadow side of spark, the toxic side of spark. And that may sound fine and dandy to you if you just want to date aggressively, but what you're accomplishing when you do that is, one, you're damaging the dating pool. So you're creating the exact women that, the red pill and the manosphere complains about, which is, ironically, not a good thing, obviously. And you are decreasing, you're giving spark at the cost of safety. So when you're creating this anxiety within the woman, you make safety drop, right? And since women need both spark and safety, that causes her to eventually leave the connection. I'll go even further than that. It also filters out women who are healthy, women who you would actually want to build a life with, because women, regardless of what the manosphere says, neither men or women are a monolith, meaning there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of similarities between the sexes, right? Like men are similar in a lot of ways and women are all similar in a lot of ways, but there's also different degrees of development, different degrees of psychological development and maturity, right? And integration psychologically. So there are some very high quality men and they're very high quality women. There's low quality men and low quality women and everything in between, right? So when you're giving off this toxic version of spark, you are attracting and being effective with women who are less psychologically developed, right? This works a lot on younger women, women who are immature, women who have attachment issues, women who have daddy issues. This is going to be very effective with them. But women who are more integrated, who are more mature, who have integrated their masculine and still stay at the feminine pole, they're going to be turned off by this. They're going to eliminate you, right? So a lot of these guys who engage in these toxic habits will tell you that they don't get every woman that they want. When they start playing these games, some women just stop texting them back. Some women cancel the date. Some women say that they're not the right fit. And they don't never come to the conclusion that some of those women were the healthy women who just decide not to play this game, right? So what you want to do is give the healthy version of spark and safety, assuming that you want to move in good faith, assuming that you don't want to further damage the dating pool, assuming that you want to position yourself to, yes, have a good dating life, but that also build the foundation where you can, have a good relationship, get married, have kids, yada, 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 right? Which is how I orient myself, and the type of men who I take on as clients are men who want to act in a more positive, grown-up way instead of just damaging people so that we can boost our egos, right? So you want to shift from giving off toxic spark to healthy spark, right? Instead of exhibiting the shadow side, you want to exhibit the light side. Now, how do you do that? Very simple. When you are behaving in a bold way, you give off healthy spark. When you are displaying a good sense of humor, when you are moving things forward and progressing the connection in a calibrated, smooth way, you're giving off the healthy version of spark. When you set proper boundaries, you're giving off the healthy version of spark. When you are being charismatic and fun, right, you're giving off the healthy version of spark. None of these things, none of these traits or qualities create anxiety with the woman. What it does is it creates enjoyment. She just enjoys being around you. She likes how she feels around you. It's fun for her. Whenever you're around, she experiences pleasant emotions. So it does cause her to lean in, but it causes her to lean in not from a place of fear, but from a place of enjoyment, right? And when you do that, when you approach it that way, you preserve safety in the connection, which builds the foundation for you to, grow with her and build an actual relationship. Now, there's also a toxic shadow side of spark. I had a client who was a textbook nice guy. If any of you read that book by Robert Glover, No More Mr. Nice Guy, I had a guy who was just like that. He would avoid conflict. He would avoid any kind of issue. He would do things and betray himself that made his woman, he would appease his woman in that way. Now, this guy was giving off the shadow side of safety. In other words, he was abandoning himself to make his woman feel safe, but what he was accomplishing was making her feel safe in the short term, but paying a long-term cost. Because when you behave like that, when you give the shadow side of safety and you betray yourself, the woman does like the fact that you're not holding her to a high standard. She does like the fact that you're not challenging her and that you're not engaged in any kind of fight. But at the same time, it makes her trust you less, because she picks up on it. She knows that you're avoiding conflict. She knows that you're avoiding difficulty and the tension that comes with any kind of conflict. And in her mind, she says, well, he can't even stand up to me. If he can't even experience negative emotions with me, then he's also probably bending over backwards for other people out here. And I can't possibly trust a man or allow a man to lead me who is too weak to disappoint me in any way. Right? So while you do get momentary peace, you pay the price of safety being reduced in the relationship, even though you're doing everything you can to preserve it. Right? So what this client had to learn was that, yes, you had to embrace conflict. You have to be able to assert a boundary. You have to let women know that, or a woman that you're dating know that you're not going for any and everything. You're not going to allow yourself to be disrespected. You have a willingness to leave, right? You also provide structure in the relationship. You attune with her. You know how to be a masculine container when she is giving off any kind of emotional experience, when she's emoting, when she's expressing herself. You're able to be present with her in the moment. You're able to give your presence to experience with her that may not make you feel the best, but because you're grounded, because you're unshakable, because you're cool under pressure, you can take it. In that way, you're giving off healthy safety. You're giving off the light side of safety. And when you do that, one, safety is preserved, but it also makes it so spark is enhanced because of how incredibly attractive it is. So the goal, gentlemen, is to merge both of these sides, but more specifically, demonstrate the healthy aspects of each side. Now, easier said than done. Some people may say, well, in order to give off more spark and more safety, I just have to Look at the traits associated with each side, like Marquette said in this video, and then just start doing that. Sounds easy. It's not that easy. It's actually a bit more difficult than you may think. The way that I think of it is the doorway to creating more spark is courage. The doorway to creating more safety is self-awareness, right? To give more safety, you have to become aware of your emotional landscape, which creates the conditions where you are more emotionally intelligent and have a more pronounced ability to emotionally attune, right? To give off more spark, you have to take social risks. Creating spark is all about creating social risks, right? You're putting yourself out there. You're putting yourself in a situation where you could be rejected. When you're being bold, when you're being confident, when you're doing things like assuming the date instead of asking for the date, right? Telling her that y'all are going on a date instead of asking her. You're putting yourself in a vulnerable position, and a lot of guys out there don't want to position themselves in that way. So giving off both spark and safety requires you to grow as a man, and you grow as a man differently depending on which category you are trying to improve. Now, it's not easy, but it is worthwhile, right? Because my approach to this whole getting more success with women becoming more attractive is I want you to improve in a way that improves your life, and women become a byproduct of that. We're not just trying to get women. We're trying to become better men so that we can actually have the life that we want to have the experiences that we want to have, leave the legacy that we want to leave, right? So the things that I will have you all do, such as creating more spark and safety, will also help you when it comes to networking, will also help you in your personal life and all of the other social connections that you make out here, right? So your life improves and women just become a byproduct of that. Again, easier said than done. So what I did to help you was I created a course called the Retainment Blueprint. In the Retainment Blueprint, you'll learn more about the concept of spark and safety. You'll learn how to look at yourself in the mirror and see exactly what needs to be improved. And more importantly, you will have a clarified path to getting there. And for all people who purchase the course, the Retainment Blueprint, they get access to a 30-minute coaching call with me so we can apply this to your specific situation, because every guy's starting point is different. So yes, you'll get all the material in the Retainment Blueprint, but the coaching call with me, the free 30-minute coaching call, is where the difference is actually going to be made, because I'm going to reveal to you your blind spot so that you know exactly how to attack it and you will have a plan to attack. So if you want to finally change not only your trajectory as a man, but your trajectory when it comes to attraction and the type of woman that you're able to attract, just click the link for the Retainment Blueprint. I'll leave it in the description below, and I will see you on the other end. Till next time.